keyboard to the boardroom. This is the Business of Esports podcast.
The fastest growing entertainment phenomenon of this generation.
I, Prophet of Esports, joined today by my friend and co-host William Collis.
Yeah, we got the book of Esports out. It's a big deal.
So everyone knows me as the Prophet and William as the Professor.
You may call me the Prophet, but in my life outside of the business of esports, I have worked on the investment side of the table for the better part of the last 2 decades. The single fastest growing area of gaming and esports is gambling. It's booming right now. You don't need to be a prophet like me to see that. However, as an investor, I've stayed away from gambling and betting companies because of the reputational risk and often shady nature of the companies involved. This was true until now. I've recently bought stock in a new public company called Esports Entertainment Group, or EEG, which is focused on esports and gambling. The big difference that changed my mind is that EEG is a public company, NASDAQ listed, and fully regulated, focused on esports betting. The regulatory and audit requirements of a public company are key in my mind to provide the needed transparency for players, bettors, and investors. I had an opportunity to host the CEO of EEG on this podcast a couple of months ago, and I was very impressed by his vision for the company. We've stayed in touch, and I'm delighted to announce that they've accepted to become a sponsor of the podcast. If you're a family office, institutional investor, or investor of any kind, really, Esports Entertainment Group, ticker symbol GAMBLE, GMBL, might be one of the best ways to get exposure to the esports betting space and gaming in general. Make sure to check them out at esportsentertainmentgroup.com. Having said that, I need to make sure to state that this is only my opinion. I'm not an investment advisor or selling stock in the company. Please make sure you do your own research and seek advice from a licensed professional if you're looking to invest in the field. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports podcast. I am Paul Dowalibi. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host, William Collis. For those of you who are new to the podcast, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do here is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. For our regular listeners, thank you guys for tuning in every week. Thank you for all the 5-star ratings and reviews. Thank you for all the love, the support. We really appreciate it. Please, if you haven't given us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast platform, do so. It helps other people to find the podcast. And in fact, the best way to help other people find the podcast, tell them about it. Tell them to come listen. Tell them to show up for the live streams. Tell them to tune in every single week on Thursdays for the podcasts, because William and I bring it every single week for you guys, and we appreciate all the love. Also, if you haven't already, I will remind people, because the holidays, Christmas is coming, the Book of Esports, still available on Amazon. Buy it and give it to anyone who's interested in this industry. William, how's it going? How was your week?
I mean, I had my weeks are so busy right now, Paul. It's temperature, but I had a great week. Lots of stuff happened that was fun and exciting. One thing I can talk about that was pretty cool was the Oxygen merchandise finally came out in the Rocket League store. So you can go, if you're a fan of the Professor and you're a fan of Rocket League, you can go to the esports section and grab your Oxygen like card skins, which actually look awesome. I think we were voted the best skin to get into Rocket League this time, so it's pretty tight.
You know, I did see that announcement, but what was funny to me, and this is the beef I have with you now, William, is I can go buy a Rocket League Oxygen skin before I actually own an Oxygen jersey. Okay. And how long have you and I been friends? How long have we been doing this? And I still do not have, I don't have a Genji jersey. I don't have an Oxygen jersey.
I need
None
to
of the
mail you a
above.
jersey. I need to mail your jersey. You're gonna give me your address after this. I'm gonna go in the mail. The truth is though, like, the skin is more fun, I think. Like the skin is where you actually want to rep it, is what I feel. That's not true. They're all incredible. Like they're great, show your pride. But to me it's something special about like wearing your skin in the game. Like that's pretty cool. I don't know. Fun stuff. But yeah.
I still want an Oxygen jersey.
Oh, you will. They look great. We need to get you a signed one too. We need the signed one.
Who's
I
gonna
actually
sign it?
the Heroes of the Storm team.
Yeah, actually, that would be kind of funny. That would be appropriate.
Honestly, I'm not even kidding. That's what I'm asking that's like what I'm gonna get myself for Christmas. I'm gonna be like, guys, I need you to sign a jersey for me because I think you're really cool.
I thought that's what I was going to get you for Christmas. I was going to get your own team
to sign a
your own
jersey.
jersey.
And I'm gonna frame it and put it in one of those. I would put it. Oh my god, I'm gonna buy a jersey display for it. You know those like dope jersey displays that they do, like the sports display. Oh, it's gonna be great. I'm there.
With what?
I'm there.
Your name on it?
Oh, I mean, who? It doesn't matter. I mean, but probably my name. Yeah,
You should put it.
I'm vain enough to have it be my name.
What you do? Here's what you do, William. You give it. You donate it to a random Providence, Rhode Island sports bar, so that they can hang it up, right?
That's
As if you are
even
a big deal in the community,
cooler.
you know.
And then I show up there and I'm getting a drink and I'm like, that guy, Silver League.
That's me.
Yeah.
Right there.
I'm not saying he's kind of a big deal, but if skill were a normal distribution, he would be about the middle.
The other, other big thing this week, Cyberpunk. Have you played yet? So for everyone who doesn't know the behind the scenes, the podcast episodes come out on Thursday, but we record them Wednesday. So Cyberpunk is now officially out. Did you sneak in like a few minutes before we started this?
No, I'm not even sure. Did it officially come out? It did come out Tuesday night, right? It came out. I'm literally logging into
tonight, Wednesday night.
Tonight, yeah. I'm literally checking the download status of Cyberpunk as I am talking to you. Like it's actually not funny. Like no, it's still in. It's still in.
Here's the question: are you going to play it? Are you going to spend Are we going to be talking next week whether this game lives up to the hype or not? Because I will say, we're not going to get into it now. I'm sure we're going to talk about it on the live stream, but there's no way this game lives up to all the hype, right? Yeah, I mean, you must agree.
Well, I mean, it's really interesting because at this point, at the point where we're recording this podcast, there are a couple early reviews out. They say it's good, but not life changing. A lot of the reviews I've read said it's a great amalgamation of the gaming concepts we've seen historically, but it doesn't feel like a way forward. Sort of those things that reviewers write where they're like, "I wasn't as much fun as I thought, but I know I should praise it." But it's really interesting. All the things they've criticized about the game actually make me want to play it more because they're like, the main quest can be completed in only 20 hours, and I'm like, really? I'll actually. And then they're like, it borrows a lot of RPG systems from other games, and I'm like, that's great. I never thought The Witchers had good RPG progression systems. I never did. They had good dialogue, they had great storytelling. I don't think anybody was writing home about the gold, silver, bronze medallions, in Witcher 3. I don't think they were that clever of a structure. So I'm actually more excited for it than I was, to be honest with you. But the reality is the expectations were too high for the game. I'm sure CD Projekt Red is an incredible developer. I'm sure they have built a really good game. I have no doubt that if this game were to be launched by almost anybody else, even somebody that you would consider a AAA RPG developer like a Bethesda, for example, right? This game would be, huge hit, smash. I think it's going to be an incredible game. But the hype was so high. No game can do all of that. No game, And
this is where I think it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure we will cover it next week or in 2 weeks or whenever numbers start coming out, right? Because we're a business podcast first and foremost, and it'll be interesting to see two things in my mind. One, what do the sales numbers look like, right?
Yep.
And two, how does the stock price react, especially considering just how much hype there was, how much the hype drove up CD Projekt Red's stock price, and just sort of how the markets react if not just the critics' response is lukewarm, but the players' response is lukewarm, or at least lukewarm relative to the hype, right? Because I'm sure a lot of people are going to enjoy the game. The question is, will they enjoy it as much as it's been hyped? Like literally, I don't think I've ever. Maybe you have. I don't think I've ever seen hype this crazy in recent history.
Yeah,
like in the last 5 years, have we seen anything this hyped?
I mean, I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting. Like, but it's weird. You know what this reminds me of? This is like the hype level for this game is there's only 2 times in my life that I can remember a hype level this high. One was the hype level for Halo 2. Like,
Okay.
I don't know if you remember how hyped the gaming community was for Halo 2, but I remember like the gaming community was hyped for Halo 2 and it was all over. And then one of the developers had some quote, it still stayed with me. They're like, guys, you know, don't get that excited for Halo 2. It's just like Halo 1, except on fire in a hospital zone, chased by ninjas, and the ninjas have laser swords. It was like something like, and that like made the hype even higher. People were like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be amazing. I remember that. And then like, I mean, maybe the Final Fantasies. You know, I remember the hype used to be so big, particularly for FF8 after FF7. I remember the hype. But yeah, we don't, because most titles, to be honest, the reason why we don't get hype like that anymore is most titles that are big are annual releases. So you've had that, like, oh, it's like, yes, it's great and it's new, but we had it new last year too. You don't have to wait for it like you used to.
Maybe like a new Zelda or a
maybe
Zelda,
new Zelda might be a close proxy, but like Cyberpunk, like I remember people were talking about Cyberpunk since there were Easter eggs for it in Witcher 3, and people were like, it's going to be so good. You know, people waiting like 5 years for this game. Of course, it's going to be like the anticipation just builds and builds. And CD Projekt Red have not done themselves any favors in terms of leaning into the hype train for good and bad, right? They have absolutely, including, by the way, doing some of the best trailers I have ever seen for a video game. I think regardless of how good or bad CG, and it's going to be good. It's just how, if it's truly amazing or just really good, regardless of how good the game is, their marketing team deserves incredible chops. Their trailers were just excellent. The content cadence was frequent and high quality. Like, it's one of the best cases of lead-in launch marketing. So it's not just the community is hyped. The developer actually did a good job of feeding the hype here in a way I don't typically see modern studios manage the promotional content this well. So huge shout out to them there, at least. Yeah.
I mean, I've probably seen the TV ad like 1,000 times at this point. They were pumping that out. I mean, the marketing budget must have been massive though.
Oh,
like
crazy.
Really massive.
Do you have a favorite Cyberpunk commercial? I'm just curious. Like, is that a weird thing to ask?
No, they were all kind of the same with Keanu Reeves, right? Like they were all like, who are you going to be? Like Night City, you can be anyone, that kind of thing, right? Like,
I liked the pre-Keanu commercial that starts like, in 2077, they voted my city the worst city to live in America. Like, do you know that one? Like, no. That's like a really nice storytelling commercial. I don't know. I mean, at some point,
are you going to play the Nomad, William? The street thug or a street kid? Sorry, street kid.
I'm doing
the
that
corpo.
The corp background. Are
corpo.
You kidding? I'm totally corpo.
Yeah, I was gonna play corpo too.
Oh no, maybe I should do Nomad. So because we should have different experiences.
I was between Street Kid and corpo.
I might do Street Kid actually. The one that starts in the desert, the Nomad, actually looked really interesting. I think I might do that one if you're gonna do corpo, just to like have because a lot of times I think like the game might I suspect the game and entering Night City will be more impactful if you don't start there. So I might try that one out.
Interesting. Let's move on. Let's talk some business news, business esports news here, gaming business news.
Yeah, let's.
What we're all about.
We're not a game review podcast.
not a game review podcast.
Don't know if we're qualified to do that.
I mean, we are, but
we are.
We're not doing that.
No, we're not.
This was interesting news. It's about a week old now. It came out just after we taped the last podcast. And the story is from sportspromedia.com. The headline is Microsoft buys esports tournament platform Smash.gg. The deal comes after US technology giant closed its Mixer Gaming OTT service in June. Just a bit sort of a short thing on Smash.gg. Since launching in 2015, they have organized online and live gaming competitions for a variety of titles, ranging from Call of Duty to Super Smash Brothers. In 2017, the company raised $11 million in Series A funding from Spark Capital, Excel, and Horizon Ventures, and that followed an initial $3 million investment from Spark, Caffeinated Capital, and Lowercase Capital. So $14 million in venture money raised in total, and now acquired by Microsoft. What do you? I mean, are we getting mixed signals here, William? Like, why would you close Mixer if you know a month later, like 2 months later, you're going to buy a tournament platform?
Paul, since this news came out, I have been racking my brains for like something clever to say, like some deep, insightful piece of analysis. But like the reality is, it doesn't make, in my mind at least, it does not make a lot of strategic sense. Like it really does not. Like, because it wasn't like also Microsoft had two options, like they're out of capital, kill Mixer or something else. Like they had plenty of middle of the road options for Mixer that didn't involve ridiculous fees to, top tier streamers, but they didn't do that. They shut it, which to me, if you sort of seed the content side of esports, which is sort of what it looked like to me, like I sort of assumed they were seeding esports, like they weren't going to be on the production side at all.
Like there are obvious synergies, right, between Mixer and a Smash.gg, like very obvious synergies. And somehow I don't see Smash.gg partnering with their, what do they call it? Their MSN esports hub or whatever. Remember that announcement, right? Like, is Smash.gg tournaments going to be exclusive to the MSN esports hub?
I mean, it is so weird because the thing that you have, if you're going to throw tournaments, the next thing you need is a place to broadcast them.
It's like, distribution.
I literally cannot begin to explain how, and particularly this so close down the pipe, like somebody wouldn't have said, can we give this 5 more months, 6 more months, like to see if something, to see if this acquisition activates something. It's very strange to me. That being said, huge kudos to Smash.gg. Like, it's amazing anytime that you're acquired. They've raised a fair bit of capital. They have some really strong venture folks backing them. I think Excel in particular is like a great backer to have. Lowercase as well, I think, is in them, right? Lowercase Capital.
What do you think the going price was, William? What do you think Microsoft pays for a Smash.gg? Let me just read from the article here. It says, financial terms of the Microsoft deal were not disclosed, but an announcement on Twitter by Smash.gg said the acquisition would mean its community and tournament organizers will continue to benefit from the Smash.gg platform, adding that its own team will benefit from additional resources and support as part of the Microsoft Content Services team. I wonder if MSN Esports Hub is part of the Microsoft Content Services team. But so 2 questions. A, how much do you think it sold for, right? And B, is the Smash branding, given the recent crackdown by Nintendo on Smash, anything outside of their own sort of purview?
Oh, a liability. That's
a really liability here.
I don't think there's any brand liability. Like just because there's a game called Smash Brothers doesn't mean they own the word Smash. It's an English word, I don't think there's a brand liability. Even though I believe that is the heritage of Smash.gg, right? It started as a tournament platform for Smash Brothers. I don't think there's a liability there. I'm not a lawyer, but I wouldn't guess so. However, I do think, like, if you ask me the price, I would say I don't think it was a crazy high acquisition, right? It sounds to me like this was a service searching for a way to monetize. My sense of the Smash platform is there weren't a lot of great dollar hooks in there. I think this is a case of you have real AAA backers and they engineer an exit at a certain level of scale. That being said, I don't think it was like a disastrous exit or anything. I don't think it was a distressed sale, just because tournament platforms typically do very well. They generate a lot of users that has value. And, Smash was one of the more successful tournament platforms in my view. So, I think it was probably a pretty good deal, but I don't think it's not a Twitch style exit. This wasn't bought for $1 billion.
Put a number on it. What's the number you'd put on it?
25 million.
25. I'll just say at 25 million. That's a disaster for the VCs.
Sure. 35 million. I don't think this was going for above 50 million for this.
Even at 35, I would guess the VCs I'm sure they had preferred shares and things like that, so they have their first money out.
Yep.
I would guess.
Mhm.
So even then, at best, they break even, right? My guess is 2017 round, the $11 million round,
Yeah.
probably had a pre-money valuation of 40,
Yeah,
right?
probably. You're
30,
right.
somewhere 30 to 50,
Yeah. Yep.
right? Post money 40 to
Well,
50, 40 to 60.
what do
Like,
you think it went for, Paul? What do you think it went for?
you know, I'd be surprised if the VCs let this go for less than what they paid.
Could be true. Could be true.
I don't think they take a loss on a Microsoft acquisition, right? And so if Microsoft paid more than 40 or 50, I kind of feel like they may have overpaid for this asset.
Yeah, that
Especially
could be
with
true.
no distribution deal. Like no, right? If they had Mixer, you go, okay, there's instant synergy. We have content, we have distribution.
Yep.
It's accretive, right? We have all the pieces of
Yeah.
the puzzle. But like,
Yeah.
what do they do with this now? What does
Yeah.
Microsoft actually? It's not like I guarantee you, Smash.gg is not generating so much revenue that it moves the
Instantly,
needle for
yeah.
Microsoft,
They
right?
have to create a new line item in the report. They're like
So what do they
tournament
do with
platform
this?
revenues. Yeah, well, it's tricky. And by the way, I mean, we shouldn't speculate. Like the truth is, we just don't know what was paid.
Well,
right?
can I
Like,
give you a
we don't-
theory
yeah.
that I see
Yes.
very often, having
Tell
been
me
on the
the theory.
venture side a long time?
Yeah.
Here's what happens sometimes, right? VCs will invest in companies. They love the team. They love the concept, right? But for whatever reason, the business stalls, right? And tournament platforms, as we know, as middlemen, have been getting squeezed, right?
Yep.
Squeezed by other tournament platforms, squeezed by the developers. So they're getting squeezed on both sides. Their margins are probably getting smaller and smaller. I would guess Smash.gg has an issue around profitability and revenue generation, right? And the VCs stepped in, and this happens all the time. They step in and they go, okay, what are our options? We could put more cash into the business, right? It's been 3 years since you raised a round, so we could do another round, or we could help you go find a buyer. And good VCs are very well connected with acquirers, with buyers, right? So I'm sure someone at Lowercase or Spark or Excel or Horizon or any of these, right, called
Yeah,
up a buddy at
top-tier firms.
Microsoft and said, look, we have this asset. It's probably a good fit for you. Let's talk, right? And a deal was struck to sell this such that the VCs probably at least got their money back, but it's better than taking a big loss 2 years from now or 3 years from now, right? And so this was a manufactured deal, is my guess.
I just have to say, I would draw all comments I previously made. Your explanation fits. I think it fits perfectly. Like, I think
Because
it's probably
this is like a favor, right? It's a Microsoft guy doing a favor for his buddy at Excel. It didn't have to make perfect sense within the Microsoft ecosystem, right? No one was scrutinizing this. It was small enough that I'm sure it didn't have to get the CFO's approval even, right?
I don't know. I don't think even Microsoft does acquisitions in that range as a favor, but I
It happens all the time, William. I've lived it, right? If you're a good enough VC, you have you have a good network at these places, right? Typically, it's not a favor, but it's like, look, it may not make total sense, but do me a solid on this one, because the reality is it's going to help your business and it helps me out, right?
Okay,
but it didn't like, but it didn't have to. No one did a 10-month sort of strategic overview of how this fits within Microsoft's gaming strategy, right? Like,
well,
this is my view of how it happened.
Yeah, like your explanation makes a lot of sense here. I think it's pretty compelling. I think the bigger question though is I'm not interested in how they were acquired or what they were acquired for. That's not to me like the fascinating dollars and cents piece of this. The question for me that's interesting about this is why? Because even if you buy your theory that this was somebody saying, come on, it doesn't have to make total sense, it still has to make some sense, right? There still has to be some driver behind it. And as I said, I had thought Microsoft was abdicating from, this side of esports, right? I thought they wanted to be consoles, connectivity, that sort of thing. I didn't think they wanted to be in the content and event management side, because that's pretty much exactly what they abdicated with Mixer. So is there another rationale here that we're missing? Is there a synergy with another type of product that we're not aware of? Right.
I just don't see it.
I
This
mean,
was a Microsoft favor to some VC friends.
can I make a suggestion that's more interesting than that? Because Paul, even if you're right, that's not great content for the podcast, and I want
Go
to
ahead.
give our listeners great content.
What is
Well, I always like to think when you see these acquisitions, what's the one thing that's working really well at Microsoft in games right now? Because generally, right, the easiest story to sell into a business like this is that thing that you have that's really working. Oh, we do that too, and we do more of it, right? The thing that's working for them most is their Game Pass subscription service, right?
Okay.
So is it possible that Microsoft looks at this not as an esports content drive, but like a bolt-on to Xbox Live as an integrated tournament platform for them?
Sure.
And they're
Could be.
looking at that and they're saying, okay, look, this doesn't have to make sense with our esports content strategy because it's not about that. This is about our Xbox Live services strategy. And just like we did integrated voice and, that was a thing, just like we've done game subscription selling and that was the thing, now we're going to do competitive structures to drive engagement and retention there. And that could be a thing too. Like, doesn't that fit well?
It definitely fits. I think the only piece where I worry there is they specifically say in the article they're going to be part of the Microsoft Content Services team. Do we know if the Microsoft Content Services team is under the Xbox team or adjacent to it, or right? Are they talking to each other? I mean, you have said many times how siloed Microsoft is. The question is, will those two groups speak to each other? If they do, I think your theory is very, very plausible. And I like the idea, right? I like the idea of not just offering tournaments to subscribers, but content to subscribers. Play games, watch tournaments, play in tournaments, right? Like there's a lot, I think, potentially synergistic there. The question is Microsoft thinking that way? Are they interconnected enough to be thinking that way? I don't know. This seems, from the article, it feels like it's separate.
It does, right? Because Microsoft Content Services, from what I can tell, is basically about advisory, like compliance, all of that stuff, supporting their Microsoft 365 initiatives, right? So that's like content services for them is like Adobe, right? That's
your
that's
email
like
subscription, you can play esports tournaments.
I don't know, but you're right. It doesn't feel like it would be it would be like Warren Spector, right? Like it would be like Warren Spector behind the acquisition if that was the vision. Yeah, it's interesting. But I mean, either way, it's a very significant move for our industry. I don't want to underplay it because at the very least, it shows Microsoft is back in the esports ring right now to some extent. We don't know quite how they're back. We don't know what they're doing, but they now have an asset that pulls them right back into the mix around the competitive side of gaming. And whether it sort of goes to quietly trot off into the sunset as part of a weird or if it's mainstream, I agree. It doesn't seem like this is a core strategic acquisition, but I would keep an eye on it because I also don't put it past Microsoft to be a bit stealthy with some things that they do, right?
Yeah, but to your point, why was there no announcement from the Xbox team, right? Like, this is so great. Look at this thing we acquired. It's going to be, we're so happy for them to join the Xbox team, right? And make this a real exciting Xbox announcement.
Yeah.
Like it's on like a tier 2 or tier 3 kind of news site, like it was covered. It was covered, but not.
And it's true. And if you're really doing it, you announce the implementation purpose, not that, like, you'd announce like, this is for Halo. Right? Like, we're so excited to do dynamic tournaments in Halo powered by
something
Smash,
like that, right?
Like, you go straight to the purpose for the end users. Yeah, we'll see. But either way, I mean, I just want to say, like, as much as it is to kind of speculate on it's fun, huge congrats to the Smash.gg team. Like, a Microsoft exit is phenomenal. And I bet, like, regardless of if they, just got their VCs their money back or something else, like, I bet they're pretty happy with that outcome over there right now.
When it's just an okay outcome for VCs, it's usually a better outcome for the founders.
For the founders, yes. Yeah.
The VCs really only do well in the home run scenarios. That's the tough part of the business. Let's move on, William. Let's talk about, if we're saying Microsoft with Mixer at least pulled back from gaming, this is a great article about Netflix getting into gaming. From happygamer.com. And the headline is rumors of Netflix looking at getting into gaming increase while Activision sues. So the article basically is about that rumors have been circulating. Netflix has been tinkering with the possibility of stepping into gaming the same way Amazon has done. It's interesting that they make that comparison.
Mhm.
Although it would likely circulate around the current subscription style of Netflix that Microsoft has adapted well with their Xbox Game Pass. So, in other words, we could be seeing another Game Pass style product from Netflix. What this article sort of contrast this with is Activision Blizzard right now is suing Netflix for snagging one of the company's top executives, which I think hot take here is hilarious. Those are not the people you want to be snagging. this this is these are the wrong company to be poaching from.
Yeah. I knew you would go there with it, but
no, I'm just kidding. He was the CFO. So the CFO was he's the one guy I can't fault at Activision Blizzard really, because the company has generated pretty great results. But Netflix did snag him. Activision says here, Activision alleges Netflix encouraged Newman, the CFO, to breach his employment contract and notes that the executive was picked up by Activision the month following his release. Netflix has been known for poaching employees from other corporations, with successful lawsuits historically being filed on behalf of Fox and Viacom regarding employee poaching. So this is not the first poaching Netflix has done, but now they're doing it in the gaming space. What do you think of Netflix's sort of thinking around the rumors that maybe it might be a Game Pass style thing, William? And second, is poaching Activision talent the way to go about this?
Well, I don't want to comment on the Activision talent stuff because I don't, to be honest, I don't know anything about this guy. He'd be the greatest, CFO in the world.
No, meaning just poaching outside talent instead of sort of maybe building internally.
Well,
or as a strategy.
Sure. Yes, I think you do. When you're going cross vertical like this, you have to poach, right? Gaming's unique enough, particularly for what they're going to want to do if they were. Actually, first, let's talk about what I think Netflix is doing here, right? I would be stunned. I mean, stunned if Netflix is not at least very seriously evaluating the possibility of a game subscription service, right? And I can make that argument on just 2 data points. One, they are an incredibly successful subscription service. They would probably like to grow into other types of subscriptions. Like, it's a kind of logical, extension. 2, subscription services seem to be working for gaming. See Xbox Game Pass we just discussed, right? It sort of seems like a model that the space hasn't quite adopted yet, but would be ripe for this sort of, pricing disruption, right? That's 2. And then 3, look at the shows Netflix puts out. Witcher, right? Like Resident Evil, like Castlevania, like they're doing video game shows. Like, what makes more sense if their content pipeline is coming from games than to just actually also do then games too, right? And it fits with Netflix's whole big data model of we know what people like to watch so we can make more of it. Now they can have a we know what people like to play so we can make something for them to watch too model. So the synergies are so obvious. I would be stunned if they're not doing it. I think they have, by the way, a lot of the infrastructure required to pull this stuff off, right? I think there's the infrastructure for streaming games and then, mass downloading games. I bet there's probably a lot of parallels too. In fact, I'd argue, particularly now with modern sort of insta-play features, it might even work very well with Netflix, that they could sort of stream instant load games and all sorts of innovations like that. I can see so many ways it makes sense. Now, and then the last one is just their demos. I bet you if you look at the Netflix subscriber demo, it is spuriously close to spurious is the wrong word there, but it is startlingly close to the average age of a gamer, right?
Yeah.
And I think it would be, if Netflix had a little button, toggle on Netflix subscription for another $9.99 or whatever it's going to be, I would click that in a heartbeat. Why not? So I just think the cross-sell to the existing audience is so powerful too. And that's something Netflix struggles with, is no matter how many great series come out on Netflix each month, you don't pay more, right? It's not like, oh, this month is so awesome, I'm a $29.99 subscriber this month. But Netflix, They don't get more out ARPU from existing users. They've previously been an expand strategy. I bet they've run out of new users to acquire to some extent, and they would like some sort of ARPU enhancing offering. So again, I mean, just like, and I could keep going. I feel like I'm boring people here, but the strategy makes a ton of sense. So yeah, they are very seriously strategically evaluating it. I would be stunned. Whether or not they do it, that's another thing. But that raises your question, do you need to poach executives to do it? Well, first of all, you don't poach. That's not how you do recruiting. But should you be looking at people from the esports and gaming industries to help you understand what are the titles, to forge relationships with publishers, to help you breach studios and maybe get your exclusive content contracts, which are the whole driver behind, Netflix's model, right? It has to be exclusive. So this is going to be a very studio relationship driven business. Like, yeah, you have to. You don't just enter the market and say, I'm Netflix with that. You really need some expertise. So in fact, the thing that makes me kind of suspicious that they're not closer to market for this is you would expect to see the acquisitions pick up at a rapid pace before this, because it's not like Netflix. You need 2, 3, 4 people to do something like this. You probably need a pretty large team and a bunch of stuff baked. And I would expect you wouldn't see just, one CFO come over, but, a whole team, teams, founders, and particularly studios. I would be stunned not to see some sort of studio head come over or announce a content production relationship or something. Like, I'm bluntly waiting for Hideo Kojima to announce something with Netflix. Like, that's the moment when I'll say, okay, these guys are ready and serious about gaming and something's coming down the pike. Does that all make sense?
It does make sense, William. Look, to me, there's the bigger question of how does Netflix go about this, right? And if you look at historically the way Netflix built their current business, let's forget the DVD era for a second, just the sort of the streaming era of Netflix, right? Step one was go and get access license to a bunch of content that someone else has made, right?
Yep.
And be an aggregator, a very simple sort of one-stop shop for people to cut the cord and come watch shows. But Netflix initially didn't create any content of their own, right? Netflix in the early days did not make any shows, didn't produce any movies, that was not part of their plan. Now, I'm extremely familiar with Netflix's business model because I invested in a company in the shoppable video space on the basis that of your theory exactly, William, which is at some point you can only add so many users, right? And when you've reached that maximum number of users, you have two options. You can either start pushing them ads to monetize those users even more, who would probably revolt, right? Like that doesn't work in a Netflix style world. Or in my case, the bet was make the videos shoppable and monetize them that way. Now, gaming as an entirely new business line is also a possibility, right? There's kind of a nice third option there. The question is, do they start by going to existing publishers and trying to be, Switzerland? Like, we'll get you more exposure for your games. We'll get you additional revenue for your games. Put them on our Netflix subscription, right? And we'll just be an aggregator for existing titles. Or do you think they go full bore and either open their own studios to create games, acquire studios to create their own games, right? Do we see the same progression that they took in the TV space? In other words, starting with other people's content first and eventually having their own content? Or do we see them skipping straight to the point in the gaming case?
No, because you have to understand, like, they were able to take a Switzerland strategy for video because nobody really knew what was going to happen with online video at that stage, right? Like, and look at how now that people have understood what's happened with online video, how their Switzerland strategy has fallen apart because you have Peacock and Disney Plus and all these, right? Like they I think were very lucky in that back then they were able to make an argument, which is, oh, we're just like a Blockbuster. You don't care. Everybody lets their videos go into Blockbuster. They really benefited from, I think, a nascent view of the market that said content creation could be separate from content distribution for video. Now, you could think that the same thing is true for, games right now, that maybe there is a nascent sense of content distribution needs to be separate from creation. But I would argue everything we've seen with Microsoft Game Store, Epic Game Store, right? Activision Blizzard launcher. It's shown that the industry is more mature and recognizes that the distro side is critical, right? So I think they're going to have to come in starting with original content. I just don't think the old strategy works here. The
Okay, but
market is more aware.
if they can't get existing content, I mean, think how much they'd have to create to have any kind of viable subscription pass, right? Like, how many titles do you need to launch with? I guess Google Stadia proved you could launch with like 4, but like, arguably Netflix wants to do better than Google Stadia. So, like, what is the number you need to have? And then, therefore, like, if the number is, let's say it's 50, are you telling me Netflix is going to create 50 original titles?
I don't think gaming works like that, right? Like I don't think they can do that. But I think what could Netflix do? They could buy a significant studio or 2 studios with a stable of part like that
Fair.
and that. And by the way, then you get access to the legacy content too, which I think has quite a lot of value in games, just like it does in television, right? Like
Who do they buy,
I would
though? Who's left?
Konami,
Konami,
like
yeah. Okay.
no, Konami. I mean, I could go through Konami, probably Capcom, right? You could get Capcom. That wouldn't be such a great bet. You could buy some of the more independent studios in the West. Like you could buy, who are the guys who are doing BioShock 4 now? Ken Levine's new studio. Isn't it Ken Levine?
Do you think
I
we
don't know.
might see more mobile games as part of the pass?
That's really interesting. I hadn't considered that. You absolutely could. You absolutely could see this being a mobile split offering. Although I suspect Netflix is again like I think they're sophisticated enough that for them they just recognize the age overlap of gamers versus gamers versus cord cutters, and they're just going to go at a much more direct Game Pass route. That would be my gut, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing you could do is, by the way, they could partner with a major publisher here, right? Like they could go to somebody like Activision Blizzard and say, look, your Blizzard launcher isn't really lighting the world on fire. It's a great tool. You guys love it, but is it really driving the incremental reach that you need? Or is it just a tool to eke out an extra 15% on your titles? Imagine pairing with our content development arm what we could fold into this. Maybe Activision Blizzard is not the best fit, but like I could see some large
After this lawsuit, I don't think
Yeah,
Activision
well,
and Netflix are going to be.
pretty dumb example. I'll be the first to say it, but I could see some larger publishers being interested in a service like this, right? Like I could see like a like I mean like I don't know. I mean,
But
for
then it
lack
goes
of a
back to my
better,
point. Then maybe they could be Switzerland, right? Because of the sort of the power of Netflix and the brand and the reach and the subscriber base and I don't know.
I I don't think you're ever. I just think, like I said, I think the days where we think streaming platforms can be Switzerland, or distribution platforms of Switzerland are just long gone. You know what I mean?
I agree. I'm just giving you the other side, but I do agree. Yeah, I don't know, William. It's an interesting one. It's an interesting one because it's an interesting way to start out, right? Like getting sued by Activision Blizzard is sort of an interesting welcome to the gaming industry. But the way to sort of figure this out, I think, is monitoring all of their job postings, right? Like if you start seeing significant numbers of job postings in and around gaming, or more announcements like this of hiring, like major hires, to me these are the tea leaves we need to be reading to figure out what the strategy is, right? Are they hiring sort of, because the Activision Blizzard hire to me says more of talks more of partnership than like building studios, right? When you're hiring the CFO at Activision Blizzard, he's the partnership guy. He's not the guy who's going to help you go create 2 studios or 3 major studios with games.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. I don't know. I mean, there's just so much they could do. Like I'm really excited to see where the games distribution space goes next year, right? Because we've clearly seen how games distribution can hurt the giants, as we've seen with Epic and the App Store battles, right? We've seen how even what I would call a large sales aggregator like Amazon have struggled to enter the games production space, clearly as part of promoting their own content distribution strategies. But yet it's so high potential. Like
Yeah.
I think you're going to see more people come in, and some people are going to figure it out, and it's going to be really interesting to see which ones, sort it out the quickest, basically.
Agreed. Let's move on. Let's talk about. I mean, we talked about Mixer a little bit in Microsoft. I think we have to talk about, just to even things out here, do some Facebook gaming content. This was in the news. The headline is a weird jumble, but Facebook Gaming introduces non-gaming content hub for partners called Hanging Out. And look, I'll cut to the chase. It's basically like Twitch's just chatting or IRL section, basically. So it's a section that's not gaming. Look, for Twitch, I always felt like, even though the just chatting and IRL sections are huge now on Twitch, I felt them moving some focus there and resources there hurt the business, hurt its credibility as a gaming platform, and long term open themselves up to attacks from startups who may be more gaming, hardcore gaming specific, right? With
Yeah.
Facebook gaming here, I mean, gaming's in their name. It's not even like Twitch, at least, doesn't have gaming in their name. Facebook put gaming in their name, and now they have a hanging out tab. William, do you
This
think
is,
this
by
is
the way,
just
the most
copying?
confusing word soup. Like, Facebook gaming announces non-gaming content. Like, isn't that just Facebook? Like, isn't that what Facebook was? Didn't you hang out on Facebook? But no, I mean, I think this is actually a lot more interesting than it sounds, because this is obviously copying Twitch's just chatting, as you said, right? That's
Yep.
obviously what this is. But what's interesting to me is it shows Facebook is taking the gaming space seriously enough, and in particular the live streaming space seriously enough, right? That they're not just sort of doing it for the they're actually aping one of the more successful elements of Twitch diversification strategy there, right? Like, they're actually directly copying a competitor, which to me speaks to continued corporate oversight and interest and investment. And when you pair that with the Mixer acquisition, it starts to make a lot more sense too, because this, like, whatever they call it, Hangouts or whatever, like,
Hanging
what do
out,
they call it?
William.
Hanging out. Sorry, it's Google
Hanging
Hangouts. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. Like, this hanging out thing feels like something that should be part of Facebook, right? Like, it feels like a more natural way to enter live streaming for Facebook would be
It's true.
charismatic people talking about things.
Why make it a Facebook gaming product? It's a great point.
Because clearly that's how their live stream's been structured. But that makes me see Facebook pouring more resources into gaming, not less, because I had missed that as an obvious bridge. But if you think that's where streaming goes, or live streaming, like, you will dump resources into that, because Facebook will very aggressively defend their core connectivity proposition, right? Like, that's one of the things they do spend billions and billions against, right? Their whole and anytime they've gone into gaming in the past, it's always been justified by the connectivity proposition. Oculus was all about a new way to meet and be present with your friends and family, if you remember when that Oculus acquisition was going through, right? So it actually, paradoxically, even though this is a step away from gaming, it makes me suspect Facebook is taking the gaming space more seriously.
Agree with you there. I guess to me, the big question is, and if everything you say is correct, which I believe it is, Facebook missed the big opportunity here, which is launch this hanging out product as a Facebook product available to billions, rather than a Facebook gaming product, which only a few thousands or hundreds of thousands might care about, right? Like, the audience of Facebook gaming is much smaller than the Facebook audience, much smaller than the Facebook user base. Why not make a product that's so clearly not gaming specific? Why make it gaming specific?
Well, because can I counter that? I think it's how you roll out features when you're that big, right? Like, why would you launch a feature like that straight prime time to billions, when you could bring it through the gaming community, which is a little bit more of an incubator, a little bit more of a testing hub, and where you see this type of service getting traction with Twitch's just chatting? Like, I think it makes all the sense in the world to basically incubate a feature like this in the gaming space, right? Plus, in general, Facebook has to believe that their streaming offering isn't quite ready for prime time yet. And so, and they just did the Mixer deal. They still don't know what they're doing with that in this whole thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see Facebook gaming looked at as more of a laboratory. And then this coming out, I mean, even the name Hanging Out feels to me like a service that they're waiting to launch on Facebook. You know what I mean? Like it's not like Gamers Lounge, or that's already a service of business. I guess a lot of the Hangout style business names are taken, but you know what I mean? Like it's an interestingly generic name.
Yeah.
And again, I suspect it's siloing before migration would be my gut.
So you think a year or two from now, everyone on Facebook, anyone with a Facebook account, will be able to live stream their hanging out to the world?
I mean, they already can do that, right? Like, there's already a big Hangout functionality and live streaming thing integrated into Facebook, right? Like, you can already do, is it stories or whatever I don't know, whatever. I mean, there's already a lot of this.
That's I think on Instagram, no?
Oh my God, Paul, we must sound so
which
dumb.
is owned by Facebook, but yeah.
Who knows? It's everywhere. They own everything. But like, I suspect you'll see an announcement a year or two from now that will be like, after enjoying incredible success in the gaming community, we're now pleased to roll Hangouts live to everyone. Already used by millions of people. Now this becomes a platform to share your thoughts and stories with a live audience and engage in blah, blah, blah. Like, I could really see that working.
Why didn't Facebook buy Smash.gg then?
Well, because Microsoft's strategy is to they'd rather wait to fire sale it off of Microsoft.
They'll wait till Microsoft doesn't know what to do with it.
That's literally like seems to be the Facebook gaming strategy is drive behind the Microsoft truck and like pick up the stuff that falls off the back, like, because they're pretty good assets. Like, Mixer's a pretty good asset, and it just falls off the back of the truck.
I like that strategy. Look, before we move on here, I just want to say 2 words. You guys have heard me talk about Esports Entertainment Group a few times now. If you're at all interested in esports betting, esports entertainment, this is a company you need to look at, especially from an investor standpoint. You've got a Robinhood account. If you're an institutional investor, they're publicly traded on NASDAQ. They're the only NASDAQ-listed, fully regulated company doing esports betting today. And I highly recommend taking a look at them. We've had the CEO on the podcast. Go check out those episodes. But Esports Entertainment Group, again, if you're a family office, institutional investor, even if you just have a Robinhood account, it's a stock to look at. Definitely look at. The ticker symbol is GMBL, like gamble, Esports Entertainment Group. Now, having said that, it's just my opinion. I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not selling stock in the company. Do your own research, get advice from a licensed professional if you're looking to invest. William, let's move on to a story here. This one has been a recurring story, and I feel like this is not the end. I thought this might be the final chapter, but I don't think it's the final chapter. This is from telecom.com. Fortnite to return to Apple devices via NVIDIA cloud gaming service. And so what this basically is saying is NVIDIA now has their GeForce Now service available, or will be available, on iOS devices. And as a consequence, Fortnite is available through GeForce Now. So you will be able to play Fortnite on your Apple device, which, because of the ongoing litigation between the two companies, has been impossible. NVIDIA, probably not on purpose here, acting as a bit of a savior to Apple and iOS for Fortnite fans.
This has to feel with me like Apple didn't know this was going to happen, right? Like,
I don't think they knew. And in fact, if I'm NVIDIA, I would be worried. Let me just say this.
That's exactly what
I would shut this down. Like, if I'm NVIDIA, I would be taking Fortnite off of GeForce Now, just so I don't get like the wrath of anyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, that's exactly what I think. It feels to me like Fortnite put this in GeForce Now, knowing, I think Fortnite probably knew. I think someone at Fortnite probably thought this could be a way to get back on the App Store, right? Like, because that's going to be
Yeah.
important. I think when Apple's approving this sort of streaming out, I don't think anywhere in their minds is they're letting a game that they are actively trying to punish back in their ecosystem. And I think it even says in your article, Apple has no comment. Like, it's
Yeah.
almost like they're not, like, I don't think they were aware of this. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the consequence of this is going to be, if you're NVIDIA, you absolutely say, hey guys, this is great. We'd love to have you in this, but we need it to be sorted out. This is an argument between both of you. You know, we don't want to get in the middle of it. We'll be in the kitchen pouring ourselves a glass of milk. Call us when it's time to put you to bed. You know, like
Yeah.
that's like,
No, but it's true. Like, you don't want to be in this like mess. And
No.
if you're Nvidia, like, the goal is to get GeForce Now on the, 5,000 billion like Apple phones, right? iPhones.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want some stupid thing like this
well,
killing
paradoxically,
your.
this would be very good at doing that. I mean, like NVIDIA, like if you're the
It's true.
only way to get Fortnite, I mean, maybe they did know what they were doing and want to do it this way. Because I'll tell you one thing that would get 12-year-old kids to download this app, and it's the only, if you can play Fortnite on your iPhone again now if you do this.
So
we'll
is
have
this
to
is this the tinfoil hat theory here, William? Which is
Mhm.
Nvidia knew this would get downloads of their GeForce Now service, so they will play dumb. They'll put it out with Fortnite still on. Apple will come knocking on the door, going, "What the hell's this?" And they'll go, "Oh, our bad. We forgot. Sorry. We'll take it off." But at this point, they have like 200 million downloads, so they don't care.
I mean, it's an interesting idea, but I I highly don't think I really don't think it happened that way, right? I think this is one of those accidental backdoors that gets written into the ecosystem, and it's candidly probably the thing that, if I'm Apple, this makes me more nervous about NVIDIA's service as a whole, because now I'm wondering, what else am I letting in here? Because the whole theory of their store is curation, right? I can curate what games and products appear here. If now
Yep.
I've led a service on my platform that can go past my curation system, then it's no longer a walled garden. So I don't think NVIDIA would, like, yeah, NVIDIA might get a free 200 million downloads in your worldview, but I don't think they would risk baiting the bear in that situation, because the bear is, hey, we cannot allow alt platforms to embed into this. Sorry, it's a great service, but it's not for us. And I would not be surprised if Apple didn't take that hard of a stance, because fundamentally this is clearly now has been shown a way around the App Store, and I don't think Apple will ever allow anything a way around the App Store, right?
So how do you think this plays out? We see GeForce Now come out on iOS devices without Fortnite because Apple steps in, or Nvidia sort of realizes the mistake, or do we see it, or does it somehow slip past and all of a sudden people are playing Fortnite on their iPhones again?
No, this gets killed. There's going to be
You don't think there's any way Fortnite
No
comes
way.
back to an iPhone?
No way. Not without a master agreement between Epic and I couldn't see that, right? Could you?
I mean, I don't know all the details of the legal agreements between like an Nvidia and an Apple and the App Store and all these things, right? If it's truly a backdoor, it could get by, right? It could go live. But I think there's such bad blood between Apple and Epic at this point. Nothing's going to slip by. Like, even if there is a backdoor, I think Apple would threaten so much fury that Nvidia will just not even bother. Like, I think
that's what I think too. I mean, you don't release the 1984 smash the window video epic and like think that, then you can like quietly sleep in when your spouse is asleep on the couch, right? Like, it's like they're mad. You're right. Nothing gets past this. Even if it's technically the letter of the law, they find a way to prevent it from happening.
I mean, Apple has decided not only are they going to kill the bully, or it depends how you see both sides, but kill the aggressor in Epic, they're going to teach them a lesson, right? Like, I don't think any of this goes away nicely, easily. Like, there's a real sort of, I think there's real bad blood at this point, and Apple is out to teach, Fortnite a lesson and Epic a lesson here. It's interesting because a story we didn't do, but that we discussed before was, Fortnite announcing, or Epic announcing, no in-person events next year, right? For Fortnite esports and things. And it just feels like like Apple's getting the best of Epic at this point, right? Roblox has all the attention on the IPO side, right? Fortnite's kind of in this slow decline. They're not on any devices. Now they say no, basically no esports next year. Like the fight, I'm telling you, this fight is not going well for Epic. It's going very, very badly.
You know, it's really interesting. This is actually a really weird parallel to make, but I don't know this parallel has come across as like disrespectful in any way, but I'm going to try to put it out there. It's kind of like what happened in World War I with naval battles. And do you know the Battle of Jutland in World War I?
I don't.
So basically, I only know this, by the way, because I listened to this, another historical podcast that's really great, Hardcore History. So I really enjoy that. Obviously, nowhere near as good as this podcast, but I was listening to it recently. And the parallel strikes me. So that was one where the British Navy basically had clear naval superiority, right? Over, but they basically never used their Navy. And the logic behind it was, yeah, we could win. And we'll probably win. And if we win, we'll win big and it'll bring all these great things. But if we lose, like, that's it. It's a lights out blow, right? We're an island nation. If we don't have the waterways, we don't have anything. We're just an island, right? So they actually, despite having one of the strongest navies, it was sort of a paradox because they had a super strong navy. They almost couldn't afford to use it because a naval loss was too strategically devastating, right?
Yep.
And it's sort of the same thing here with Fortnite. Like, I feel like someone in the room now, and this is hindsight, right? But someone should have said, look, guys, we think we're going to win. We'll probably win. We have all the reasons to believe we can win because clearly they thought that at the time. But if we lose, it's so bad. We can't do it. We can't do it, right? We have to, this is just one battle you don't fight, even when you think you're 90% odds to come out on top, because the 10% world is so bad. It's, you're weighting your utilities and I really strongly get that sense here because I don't think Fortnite is in anywhere near this position if they're still on mobile devices. I really don't. I think it was a huge portion of their audience. I think it fragmented friend groups because crossplay was a huge feature in those games, right? And now if everybody can't play, nobody wants to play, right? Like, I think it really, really... And again, the linchpin to all of these services is scale, right? The one thing you don't do is you don't mess up your scale, right? That's how network effect driven businesses operate. And it was just too much of a blow to scale for them. Like I like, no one's writing them out. No one thinks they're they're going to go bankrupt or anything.
No,
but
yeah.
It has not been the year of Fortnite, and it probably should have been. 2018 was the defining year for them. There was no reason 2019 needed to go like this, particularly not when interest in gaming at home is at an all-time high, right? Like
2020, you mean?
Ultimate, or 2020, yeah. Sorry, 2019, yeah. 2020, like I blocked out the year already, Paul. It's like a time slip, right? Like, I would have argued their battle royale, fast casual, youthfully styled game. Like, this was the year of that game. Like, we need a battle royale type, that accessible battle royale type experience now more than ever. And unfortunately, I think they kind of put the handbrakes on right at a moment that could have been a real crowning year for them, right?
I think your analogy to that naval battle is a great one. There's nothing I love more than wrapping up the podcast with business advice from my dad, okay, who always told me, and it goes back to your naval battle. Told me in business, you don't pick a fight if you aren't sure you're going to win, right? If you're not absolutely 100% sure that you're guaranteed to win, you don't pick the fight because the risk of loss is too great. Like, the loss is too great, right? And so good business advice to end on. Don't pick fights you aren't guaranteed to win. On that note, William, we've got a fun announcement I just want to end on. We're going to talk about it on the live stream as well. But
you're ending on this? We should have opened on this.
No, I'm ending because the live stream is going to be the official announcement, and then we're going to talk about it on next week's. But anyways, I'm just going to tease it. Guys, we have merch. There is Business of Esports merch coming. Okay. And if you're listening to this the day it comes out, potentially it's up. Potentially it's for sale. So I will say it's coming. Save your pennies. Get ready to buy everyone Business of Esports Christmas presents. It is coming. They're exciting. I love them. And if I need to put William in an elf hat to push the merch, I will.
True
William
story.
will be
He is
be
going to put me in
modeling.
an elf hat to push the merch.
William will be modeling all the merch. If you didn't know, William, in his spare time when he's not the professor, was a male model in his
Hand
younger
model,
days.
male hand model.
Male hand model. Yes, I forgot. Sorry.
Just for the mice, because I'm such a great mice holder. Like,
but also go buy his book, The Book of Esports, on Amazon. And if you haven't already, leave that 5-star rating and review on the podcast, guys. It's so appreciated. Don't forget the live streams. We do them every Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. We also have like our weekly minutes, our weekly news roundup, all the business of esports content you can imagine. And of course, keep tuning into the podcast. We really appreciate it. On that note, William, thank you so much.
thank you
And
so much.
we
It's
will
great
see
to
you
be here.
guys next week.